What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? This your boy Enlightened Luciferian Prince coming at y'all once again. My previous video talked about the origin of the claim, which is basically a courtroom strategy that they use against many people the world over in the legal so-called private society. Now, what I want to talk about in this video is basically the rebuttal of the claim. If you do not rebut your adversary's claim, there is something that is called consent by assent. Now, you have to realize that in order for you to rebut the claim, you have to also take it into strict consideration that there was one very significant legal precedent that skips over a lot of people's head. I mean, if you peruse scripture, you understand that the messianic figure said particularly, settle with your adversary before you go to court. Now, the reason why this is very legally significant is because many people do not rebut claims against people who say they have done something. Maybe it's because A, you're either unawares to the trickery and the deception that they have placed within a case file or placed on the docket, or 2, you have become very passive or very lax in your responsibilities to legally handle your responsibility toward your adversary. Now, when it comes to the sovereign capacity, you have to also understand in any instance, they're trying to take something from you. And it's also what I put in my previous video, which is called the transference of the principal obligation. The transfer of the principal obligation was meant to basically take the government responsibility through House Joint Resolution 192, passed June 5th, 1933, and place that obligation upon the shoulders, which is fraud, of the American populace. I don't care what color you are. I don't care your race, ethnicity, creed, origin, or religion. It doesn't matter. Everyone that claims citizenship in this quote-unquote de facto corporation is considered just that, a corporate fictional entity with statutory rights, not natural-born rights, statutory rights that at any time can be abrogated or taken away. What you need to understand is that the claim that is placed against you in court usually is considered, in any sense, an offer of contract. Now, why is it that way? Because every case number, every docket number, anything that has a number in and of itself is, quote-unquote, a security. Now, docket numbers usually are contracts. Now, in order for you to enter their jurisdiction to do business, you have to argue or basically make a claim or a counterclaim against a claim that was placed against you. This is a very subtle trick because the average person gives up very pertinent information that the court otherwise doesn't have. But before I proceed, let me say this. This does not constitute legal advice, nor does it constitute anything anti-government, because the people are the government. The sole purpose of this information is for educational purposes only. Simple as that. Now, for those who it's meant for, so be it. For those who don't get my drift, pause the video, stop the video, grab a pen and paper, write it down. Take this information for what it's worth. Now, going back to claims that adversaries place against you, you have to also understand that anytime a claim is brought against you, it's a liability, which means that the individual entity, whether he or she, or in the corporate capacity, it places against you, they have to fully prosecute it to the full matter of the law, or else they will be liable. Why? Because they know through the legal structure and the framework of the corrupted romantic system of law that they created a fraud from inception. However, you co-conspire to partake in this fraud by accepting the liability and not discharging it for its particular value and its worth. That's the thing that people don't get. I have perused probably hundreds of hours of content, the internet over the years, not just over a few months. This is years. And I've seen nothing but videos have been placed online where there have been some very articulate idiots that the systematic structure has totally placed in media to otherwise try to shun or discredit this movement. They have shown people go in there and try to argue or try to basically give rise to confrontation to a matter that should have otherwise been settled before that individual got to court. Why am I saying this? Because you have to realize that these processes that I talk about on my channel and in the context in which I actually disseminate this information are private remedies. They are not to be boasted publicly. That's the thing that the structure and the disinformation, miseducation system wants you to believe, that you have to go in there, contend, or be argumentative. That gives rise to controversy. That also lets them know that you have entered into their jurisdiction as an incompetent because you obviously don't know how to handle your legal affairs. Another thing is, majority of these people, if you notice what I'm saying, that have, if you watch these videos, and you probably know what I'm talking about, they don't have any proofs. They just have verbiage. They don't have the documented proof, nor do they have the consent by assent on behalf of their adversary, i.e. via affidavit or notice of default or affidavit of default or all the above. They never settle. Majority of the time, lawyers know that they can keep themselves out of what is called liability because they have what is called qualified immunity. Most of the time, you'll hear it actually in law, where it's not positive law, it's just law, codified law, I should say, where they say that they have sovereign immunity. First off, no state is sovereign in and of itself in a corporate capacity. There's only qualified immunity or official immunity, meaning that people who have an office or hold office, only in the official or office capacity can they be immune from any type of wrongdoing. That's their out. So whenever you contend with your adversary in court, they don't have to respond because they use that as cloak to basically shield themselves in their official capacity, official only, from any liability. So you can't sue a judge in the official capacity. You can't sue a prosecutor in the official capacity. You can't sue a police officer in the official capacity. Let me drop something on you. You can sue them in the natural capacity. That's why, if you know how to file your UCC-1, when it says particularly governor, you don't put the title. You put the natural person who holds the office because that's who's holding office. So that makes that natural person responsible for all the debts or all the charges against the strawman entity because they have assumed the responsibility to be government. We often heard throughout our whole life, he who has the gold makes the rules. We heard it our whole life. Little do y'all know, he who has the gold pays the fucking bills. And part of my language if you're watching this around children. If you are, please escort your children from the premises in which you're actually domiciled in your own certain sphere. But these videos are not made for children. Truth be told, they have gotten away with this legal scheme to insulate themselves because you have to realize that the legal system in and of itself, as practice, is fraud. I don't care what nobody says. People have given up properties. People have lost countless battles with the legal adversarial system. People have contended. People have lost because they didn't have the proper understanding and overstanding as to how these functions are practiced in courts. Yes, people have been snowballed. Yes, people have been railroaded. Yes, there is miscarriages of justice. Yes, we know this. And these are people who have had this happen to them and not even known a tittle of the things that I actually speak about on my channel. But for the warriors that are in the struggle, in the battle for your own personal liberality, I suggest to you this. As often as you can in your personal life, please stay away from the parasitical legal system. Some people want this knowledge just to go in there and try to contend with these people. Let me tell you something. The more you know, the further away from the beast you go. You don't use this stuff in a revenge complex because that brings ill repute upon what you are supposed to do in your own personal sphere, and it gives them satisfaction to make you look like a fucking nutcase and to basically discredit anyone that comes after you. What you need to do is learn how to handle your legal affairs in an appropriate and responsible manner. Period. It's not to try to go in there and show about how much you know, because let me tell you something. When you're in the grip of this quote unquote lion's paw, guess what? They can do to you whatever they want. If you're in jail, they'll just keep setting your court dates back. If you're trying to sit here and make it seem as if you're correct, and they know you're correct, but guess what? You're down bad. You're not going to beat the enemy on his field. Now, let's say hypothetically from the street sense, if you're on the streets and you're still contending with court, be aware that these people will try often to dissuade or otherwise entrap you in certain ways. Just so happens you might have a court date. You didn't get the notice. The notice was filed in the court case for you to appear. You didn't appear. Next thing you know, you think you won. In the back of your mind, next thing you know, you get pulled over. Now you have a warrant. See what I'm saying? You have to pay close attention to your commercial affairs and make sure that any documentation that's placed in a court case or court file is properly addressed to you. See what I'm saying? Do not, for any instance, think that the legal system is built upon a fair precedent. I'm so sorry that TV, movies, media has misled you to believe that this is about justice, right and wrong. No, people. You can see it clearly as ages have gone on throughout this whole ordeal. For most of us who have lived throughout this, our existence, as far as our human existence is concerned, this so-called quote-unquote corporation, i.e. continent, these people get away with whatever the fuck they want. But that doesn't mean that they have to do it upon your time. What you need to learn is a sort of tactician mentality when it comes to these people. Because yes, they will obstruct your paperwork. Yes, they will try to suppress your evidence. Yes, they will try to subvert or try to basically muffle your competent speech in court. Yes, and even in most instances, they will even make you look fucking crazy. You need a mental evaluation. We need to make sure that he or she is mentally competent before standing trial. They know off the muscle what you're saying is true. They just can't ever let it come to the public realm. If you had 12 people with facts and evidence proven, if you had a cause placed against you to say that you have done something, and you can break down these very specific details to 12 individuals you've never met before, but grant them a little bit of insight on how the legal system works, guess what happens to the public faith in the system? It starts to crumble, right? Now, the reality to it is they're never going to allow that to happen because it is a multi-billion-dollar empire. Universe forbid that one of the lowly of the earth actually reveals the mechanisms behind legal practice. Oh, it's a catastrophe. It's overnight. Anarchy. Because people will not believe the capacity in which they have been fooled. It's very drastic. But the object is to not try, in any instance, to be naive in any sense, to make it seem as if these people will actually bow over and basically let you get away with the W. Because we grew up with the whole ideology that the legal system is finite. It is infallible. You can't beat me. Little do people know there have been many successes that have been unpublished because many cases have either went settled or unpublished on the LexisNexis or the legal reference materials that we often peruse in regards to searching certain things. In the future, I promise you I will take one of my cases myself from years ago and I will publish it and let you know that a judge, quote unquote, has cognitive dissonance to my processes that I used, and then on one hand denies it, but on the opposite end actually gives credence to what I'm saying, but eventually dismisses and denies the case overall because, again, they can't let you win. Publicly, they can't let you win because these things are recorded. So, people, what you need to do, whenever someone brings a claim against you, do not put off your paperwork And do not call a fucking lawyer. Period. I said it before in one of my previous videos. Ye wretched hordes, corpus juris secundum, proves exactly, attorney and client, what I'm saying is very true. They work for the system. I don't care how much you pay for them. I don't care if you went to school with them. I don't care. Their allegiance is to the bar. It's to the British accredited regency. Their allegiance is to the motherfucking court system. They're just there as a mediator to get you to basically contract yourself or to turn you over as surety for the contract in which the court wishes to extend. Your obligation as power of attorney in fact in wanting to walk in your particular station as sovereign is to handle your particular legal responsibilities on your own with due diligence and competence. Period. That's all it's about. Now, point for point, in any instance, you have to rebut everything they say against you. If you don't, you tacitly submit to the jurisdictional probes that they place upon you in any docket, and then you assume the responsibility of a debtor. And once they extend the contract to you, and you actually, by signature, your sign of nature, or you silently admit either by failure to respond through service or failure to rebut by verbiage or objection, you have tacitly submitted yourself into their jurisdiction. Notice the flag in courtrooms. Flags in courtrooms are often what? Displayed as purporting to be American flags, but those are flags of war. Those flags in every courtroom, the United States over, is an admiralty flag, maritime law, meaning that those rules that they have in their codes are those rules that they're going to use to govern their contracts, and they're so rigid that they're not going to come off that path. They're going to stick to them, and they're going to make it seem as if you, by your tacit admission, by tacitly subjecting yourself to their jurisdiction, has become, quote unquote, surety for what? A prosecutorial event, which is going to be monetized into a bond that you have no rights over whatsoever. People, you need to learn this significant truth because you will not focus properly to handle your commercial affairs. They can threaten you with whatever they want, but your job is to never become defensive, is to always be competent. Meaning, sir, you say one more word, I'm going to put you in jail. If I don't say anything and I don't have representation and I am representing myself, how are we going to finish this matter? And secondly, I didn't threaten anybody. I'm not a threat to myself or anybody else. So contempt of court will be totally a fallacy, if any sense, for you to try to implement that against me. What you don't want is for me to actually speak in the representative capacity of myself. But if you're not willing to actually settle this today, to keep my personal natural self out of liability, please reschedule this for another day. And please have your clerk send me a notice right now while it's on record for another day. Simple. You don't have to argue with these people. Remember, they're servants. They serve the public. That's their job. Judges are not demigods. Police officers are not demigods. Sheriffs are not fucking demigods. They are not the be-all end-all. They serve the public. It's just that most of society has become so bitchified and so scared and so punkified that they have let these people, you've abdicated your role as sovereign and you let servants ride on horses while you walk on the face of the earth. It's a grievous evil, but it's the truth nonetheless. Now, if you want to be a servant, please stop this video and swallow the blue pill. I never said anything. Don't take my word for it. But if you actually want to exercise your responsible, universal sovereign right to not be held under any liability or debt promulgated by man or legislation, wake the fuck up. You're not a corporation. You were born a natural person. any legal presumption placed against you, it is your obligation and your responsibility to be able to distinguish between who you are and to who you are not. Stop placing labels on yourself. Stop calling yourselves by distinct titles, because remember, that places you in a cage, in a box, in a place, in a prison, in a mental state, and you will always be held under the legal jurisdiction of the Lex Regia Corporation, also known as the I.E. Mundi prison system, known as the Vatican, which in and of itself claim ownership over all souls and all people. Natural, born, indigenous people, not humans, not blacks and whites, not all these distinct titles, not all these countries which are corporations, but natural living souls. Once you actually display competence of the actual flame of the spirit, and you show through competence and peace that these individuals have no rights whatsoever, and if they do, they have to prove that they do, which they never have, they have to give you an out. Because remember, the Jewish Talmud is how all law is ran. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, then you need to understand the actual variance between the necessity of an ecclesiastical deed poll and what you need to do to pull yourself out underneath from the Babylonian system, which is the mystery system, which you haven't been educated upon, because whether you believe it or not, judges are actually individuals who preside over the souls of the dead. Why do you think they wear black? It's not tradition. They wear black for a reason. And once you understand the occult purposes behind black, as far as the color is concerned, black absorbs light. It takes it in. So what does it do? If you look at the void in space, there's no light, quote unquote, except for what we understand scientifically as the light of the sun. But even the sun is limited in its light. It's the same thing as the human spirit. But you must shine bright, because even though the sun is limited, it's still sovereign in the sphere, because it still brings the day. Do not let these priests of craft rule over your life. You have to take it in a certain perspective that these people have crafted a particular artful craft to otherwise dissuade and mislead you into confusion. Once you come out of that state of mental negligence and start placing yourself in proper perspective, you start seeing that these things start to move out of your way. Now, is this anything to try to rile up people's imagination? No. This is written in their law system. You just need to grow the gall to basically dive in the books, place it in its proper perspective, and live a responsible life. That's all. Your objective is to basically be the sole proprietor over your labor, your equity, and your responsibility socially. And basically to not get yourself involved in any trouble, so to speak. And if you do fall into some sort of infraction, not a crime, like a harm to a person or property, it's your responsibility to stand up for that. And you just learned a very significant truth in less than 24 minutes. That's the facts. See, a lot of times they try to sit here on these channels, and a lot of disinformation, misinformation agents try to sit here and make it seem like people who have this ideology are anti-government. You can't be anti-self. The only way you could be anti-self is causing self-destruction. That's anti-government. Now, when it comes to the public sphere of what people think government is, it still resides in self. It's about conscience. Now, because people go vote or they see public officials or whatever, these people are responsible. You are only responsible for yourself. But when they take upon the social burden to call other people of their sub-political division constituents, they become, quote unquote, the warden of the wards of the state. Your job is to not be a ward of the state, because a ward is a mentally incompetent person who doesn't know how to handle social responsibilities. Wake up, people. Stop letting people that are servants drive you like cattle. Now, if you don't want to deal with that particular instance, you don't have to. There's no moral or social obligation where you actually have to vote. You don't have to. You choose to vote. And then you have to deal with the lesser of two evils who still belong to the same so-called construct. You have a right to deal in your own personal sphere. And I'm not saying you got to cause chaos. You can just hide away and not deal with them at all. Just be responsible in your own commercial respects. That's all. Now, anybody who gonna kick these ballistics like this on YouTube, I haven't seen it in all the years I've done it, but I will tell you, it's just that simple. Can't make it any more simple. This is your first time viewing this channel, like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification button. That way when I drop uploads, you'll be the first to actually be in the loop. It is what it is. And agents, do not contact me whatsoever. I do not consent, nor do I oblige. It is what it is. Y'all work for that side. I stand on the light side, not the dark. It is. That's just the way it is. Can't go no other way. But I'm peaceable above everything else. Peaceable. Mind my business, live healthy, and I'm here to live my creator ordained purpose. That's it. I'm not here to save the world. Of course not. The world don't want to save his goddamn self. So why the hell am I going to sit here and try to be a martyr for the cause? Nope. I'm here to just give you insight, to make you think respectively, and to stop being treaded upon like some particular piece of property that can be used and disposed at the whim at any moment by some construct. Wake up, people. Wake up. Stay woke. Stay alert. Stay aware. Stay tuned. Part 3 coming.